Welcome to ACTPod, a podcast show that sheds light on the stories and impact of the social sector. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. Let's begin the change.
Hello, welcome to ACTPod. I'm very excited to welcome you to this episode. My name is Omoye, and today we'll be having an amazing, insightful, very much needed conversation on this episode of ACTPod for us as social entrepreneurs, as nonprofit leaders. And I'm excited to have the guest that I have in the studio today. This is her second time being here. She was here on episode 9, and that's almost 3 years ago, by the way. And that's in person of Mosun Layode. Layode.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. So good to have you here. Today's conversation is a very, very important conversation. If I walk up to about 3 persons or 3 nonprofit leaders or social entrepreneurs and I ask them how they are faring financially in this period, I can almost guess their responses. Tough, especially African philanthropists or African nonprofits and social entrepreneurs. And that's because of some of the recent international cuts in international aids, as well as the growing economic concerns that we have in this part of the globe, and I dare say globally, as it were.
Yes.
So yes, it's a challenge, and especially this year, and conversations need to be had because a number of nonprofit leaders are probably losing hope right now and are asking themselves if they're going to still stay in business. And so today we are having this conversation just to shed some light on this issue and basically to help us understand how we can stay resilient in this period and weather the storm. And I'm very excited to have Mosun here. Mosun is the executive director of African Philanthropy Forum. She's a seasoned professional. Let me not just get into talking a lot about her. And she has a lot of experience in African philanthropy, nonprofit leadership, international development, as it were. And I'm very excited to have you here again on ACTPod, your second time. Thank you for obliging us.
Thank you so much, Omoye. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm actually surprised that I was number 9. So
yes.
I don't know what number this is, but it's always great.
That is something.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'll count for the next one.
Yes.
But thank you. It's a crucial moment in time, not just for nonprofits. You started by saying if you walk to anyone in 2-3 people in nonprofit and you ask, no, if you walk to almost anyone in the world right now, that's the mood. This is the mood. But obviously it affects us even more in the social sector because we knew things were not going to be the same, but we had no idea how hard it was going to hit us, how fast it was going to hit us, to what extent it was going to be, right? So it is very challenging times. I just came back from, I will say, my 3rd conference this year. And it has been very, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. But I would also say there is hope and there is encouragement, right? Because it is a lot that the USAID funds, because that was what brought much of this into light. I would say because of the extent of it, but it was already beginning to happen. There were moves by some European countries already to reduce aid. So it was something we were anticipating, but the extent of the USAID one was, because of the magnitude. And it is a lot of money. $60 billion is a lot of money. Nobody can fill that. No country, no African country can fill that gap. No one philanthropist can fill that gap. So it is a time where we really have to come together and become even more creative and resolute in our determination to step up as Africans. We've been talking about this for several years. It happened during COVID. We knew we were told there would be another, not this sort of situation, but we knew there would be something else coming.
Yes.
And we stepped up at that point in time, but we went back to bed and forgot that this was going to happen again. So it is a time where we have the opportunity, the real opportunity to make a huge difference as Africans on the continent. And that's why African Philanthropy Forum was started in the first place. It's because we know that we have resources on the continent to address our challenges, our development priorities. Not that we can't work with others, not that others should not collaborate with us as Africans, but we have to own our own development. And I think there is no better time than now for us to step up and rise to that occasion.
Thank you very much. I mean, you took the question from my mouth and you answered it, and I loved it. But I just wanted to ask, you said you just came from about 3 conferences this year, and it's doom and gloom. There's just that in the air. Should we be concerned? Should we be worried? Is it a time where we're like, oh my goodness, we may never get out of this? What should we as nonprofit leaders and social entrepreneurs now think? How should we approach this situation?
I don't think we should give up. I don't think we should say we'll never come out of it. I came back and I told the team, I was here in 2028 when we had the financial meltdown.
2018.
So 2008. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
In 2008, around the time of the financial crisis, I was here. It was a challenging time for the nonprofit space, and it's sad, but some survived, some did not. But we all had to pull into our, to recalibrate and do things differently. And a lot of organizations came out of that and learned from it. And because of that process, nonprofits actually started diversifying their income base, their funding base. And then there was COVID, it happened, and we're here. And, so I believe this is just another opportunity for us to be more sustainable, to look at different ways of executing our projects, implementing our projects, driving our vision without relying on a specific form of income, a specific country. So it's really a time for deep reflection and thinking. I don't think we should be afraid, but I think, there's a source of concern because a lot of people are saying, is there a future for the nonprofit space?
Yes.
Someone in one of the groups that I was in during my last meeting mentioned, there's a lot of conversation around, let us monetize certain things, fee for service. But she says, the people I work with don't have money. Like they still ride camels. You can't ask them to pay for, so there is the need for us to look at the value chain of the work that we do and see how we can, be more productive in a way that we are also looking at our various income streams and seeing what are we doing that we shouldn't even be doing? Is what we're doing, is it relevant? Should there be another organization doing it? And if not, how do we band together to work together? Because this is a time for collaboration.
Absolutely.
That is what I would say. Absolutely. There is no getting out of collaboration. We really have to work together, and we have to be very single-minded about the work that we do and what our priorities are at this point in time.
Wow. Okay, I
wanted to say more, but it's fine.
Okay.
It would. There's more to come. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, just listening to you, basically the message to us as nonprofit leaders and social entrepreneurs right now in Africa is, let's go back to the drawing table. We need to sit down and rethink our strategies, rethink our models. And basically, this leads me to my next question about financing models. As it were, we need to start thinking of new financing models, innovative ones, and strategies that we can work with. Because I hear you talk about the different organizations and the people that we serve. So for instance, the community she serves are people who still ride camels. How does she or he, how would they be able to, get this funding from within? So now this brings me to this question, because it's a thing of concern. Are there financing models that are currently working in Africa that we could adopt in terms of things that we could start looking at as nonprofit and social entrepreneurs?
I think the best example of this is to talk about the evolution of funds on the continent. It's not like they weren't there before, but there has been an increasing number of collaboratives that are coming up with funds. So funders or organizations are coming together to pull their resources together to fund areas of interest for them. This is so, the emergence of this is so important at this point in time that we had a whole session on this at our conference at 2020 what was last year?
4.
Our 2024 conference in Marrakesh.
Oh, yes.
When we were talking about, the role of African philanthropy in transforming Africa.
Yes.
And, so collaboratives are really working where you would find local organizations, you find philanthropists, you find international donors coming together to pull resources around a specific issue. So it can be a fund for health. It can be a fund for economic empowerment. It can be, so that is rising. And I think that this is a critical time for us to begin to do that. There is also impact investing. It's not very popular in our space, on the continent as it is, for instance, like in Asia, where it has gained significant ground, but it is evolving on the African continent, where, there are those that say, okay, maybe if we're not going to solely rely on grants, because when we think about grants go, it's not like they're bringing back returns, but with this, you can get a return and you can get a social benefit as well. So those are some of the things that people are beginning to look into and tap into. Venture philanthropy, where philanthropy is de-risking the space so that others are confident enough to come in to fund. The other part, which I think is really key at this point in time for us on the African continent, is to begin to look at the unusual suspects. We always go to the same people to raise funding. There are so many people on the African continent that are well-resourced that don't know how or where to fund. So that is a challenge we have at African Philanthropy Forum.
Just to interrupt, because that's a very vital point you mentioned there. But how are we able to identify these people? Because that's the next question would ask. How do we know these people and how are we able to approach them? So please go ahead.
So as I was just saying, that makes our work even more pressing and more urgent at African Philanthropy Forum, to begin to unearth these individuals or these organizations, working deeply, with those who work closely with them, their family offices, their lawyers, their banks that work with these individuals, and, just really being part of their community, going to places that they go to, being a part of the events that they attend, and speaking about the need to pull resources at this point in time. Because if we don't do it now, everyone is going to be at risk, because we're going to be in danger of not being able to fund critical, essential areas that some of these resources or grants or funding have covered, that almost seem like, it's worked so well for so many years and so many decades that it's soft and we don't know something is making it work. But now that it has stopped and is being pulled back, we'll begin to see the risk of not investing. There is the risk of investing, and then there's also the risk of not investing. So we need to begin to have these conversations and pull these people in and find out what their interests are, what do they align with, and bring them into the community so that you can see that there are other people like us. Some people have gone before us and we can learn from them and put money into the pot to solve some of our most pressing challenges.
Wow. Very, very true. I wanted to just ask, just to piggyback on this, your last comment about engaging these individuals and corporate organizations that we believe we can work with. I know that Africa Philanthropy Forum is doing this at the moment. What would you say is the feedback you've been getting from having this kind of conversations? Is it yielding the desired results so far? Is this something we should be very hopeful about, that this philanthropist or organizations are coming around to?
I would say there is hope. It is certainly not, things are not moving as fast as we would like. One of the things I have learned in this work is that, people have their way of doing things and they need to be bought over, convinced, not bought over with.
Yeah, I get you.
But, you need to bring them into your own camp to understand the need and, for them to understand the overall benefit for all of us. And in the end, they are entrepreneurs, right? They need to know how this aligns with their work as well. So it's, I would say it's a long road. I would say if it was easy, we probably wouldn't be having this conversations
right now.
But we're seeing that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of philanthropists are beginning to feel the heat and understand that they cannot be in this space and not contribute to the development of their own communities, right? Because when this happened, within hours, projects were shutting down.
Yes.
Within hours. I'm not saying within days.
Yes.
People were going without medication. And some people had to step in. We had some donors front loading their grant making, giving grants ahead. If they were going to give, if the next cycle or the next tranche was going to be in the third quarter or fourth quarter of the year, they were giving it to them. Now we had one of our members reach out to us to say, "Oh, can you give us a list of organizations in Nigeria that are working in health that have been affected by this?" So everyone is getting up to do something, and I think they are beginning to see the importance of being part of, this wave of making a difference. But I would say it's challenging and it's a long road. We just need champions. So we are working with champions, those that are already there, those that are already to bring their members of their own community, like-minded people like themselves that are not already doing or engaged in philanthropy as they are engaged to come into this to join the journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mosun, for just shedding light on all of these conversations. At this point, I'd love to ask now specifically to African philanthropists, just asking the question as to what roles can they play in this situation that we found ourselves. I know that you're talking about how we are pulling them into the conversation, but what exactly do we expect of them right now and local donors to help to bridge the current financial gap that we're experiencing in this sector?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to begin to see that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So a lot of philanthropy that is happening in Africa at this point in time is, even though philanthropy is growing, you find that a lot of philanthropists are running operating foundations. So they set up a foundation that is to address something of their own interest. And they are funding it versus supporting existing organizations that are already working in that space. Again, that is fine. You can't, you really can't dictate or legislate how people should do their own philanthropy.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that we can begin to do is consider hybrids, where you're doing that, you're running an operating foundation, but you're also supporting organizations that are working in that space, that area of interest of yours. There are lots of philanthropists that do that around the world, and there are some Africans that I know that do that as well. There is that. Then the second, and I think the most important thing right now, is for us to begin to not work in silos, or to stop working in silos and to really collaborate and pull resources, significant resources that can address deeply rooted issues that we have, that one organization cannot address or one individual cannot address. There is no way, for instance, if we're talking about this gap, that one person can do it. But if we pull our resources together, we still won't get to it. I mean, look at the Nigerian government increased the health budget by $200 million after this happened.
Yes.
We had a similar effort in South Africa. They gave a lot more, I think possibly in billions of dollars, or maybe not significant, but about $1 billion or between $1 billion or $2 billion dollars went into that. But think about that and think about 60 billion. I know the 60 billion wasn't coming into Africa.
Yes.
So it's a lot of money. And even when we all come together, we may not be able to fill that gap, but we'll be able to make significant improvement or contributions in that space. So I think collaboration is really important. We need to leave behind our logos, our egos, all those things that we consider important that make us feel, we think we can do this by ourselves. We need to leave that behind, or leave those behind, and band together to make a difference. And the other one, maybe I shouldn't have said the second one was the most important. So I won't say anything is the most important. All of them are important.
Yes.
The other thing is they are people of influence. And we need to begin to influence government.
Okay.
Government needs to, this work, the social sector work, is is relevant because government is failing in its responsibilities in certain ways, or maybe they don't have the capacity to do certain things in certain ways. That's where philanthropy comes in to fill the gap. Philanthropy is not government. Philanthropy supports the work. So what we need at this point in time is people of influence that have the government's ears. They need to begin to speak to leaders. We need to act at AU level even. I think that is a critical thing, to begin to talk about how can philanthropy and government work together to fill this gap. First, by government doing what they should do, and then philanthropy supporting the work. The something else that has come up a lot in this space in the past few months that we've been talking about this issue, that is not necessarily about philanthropy, but we really aid the issue that we are in, is the cost of capital. A lot of agencies are coming up to say the fact that we are not able, African countries pay a lot for capital that when we borrow, we pay a lot to pay back.
Yes.
And that is affecting the ability of our governments to invest in the countries, in the issues that matter, which then makes us go back to look for aid. So there is that aspect as well that needs to be looked into.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. You've touched on very, very important points here. And I believe that to the different stakeholders involved, even to the government and to philanthropists, talking about hybrid. And I know that in today's conversation, you've talked about collaboration a whole lot. I think that we cannot underemphasize or overemphasize collaboration. Rather, it is very, very, very important, especially for African philanthropists and even for nonprofits, as it were, like you mentioned. But I want to move a bit from talking about the philanthropists now to talking about nonprofits, to talking about social enterprises, as it were, and ways that we can stay resilient. Like you already mentioned while you were speaking, you said hours into the announcement, some persons were already closing shop, shutting down projects. And there are a number of persons who have said, okay, we'll still pull through, but many are discouraged. Many are telling themselves we may not be able to go beyond 2025. We may have to close work. How can we stay resilient? Really, how can we stay resilient through this? And are there organizations or are there other sustainable ways that we need to start exploring as nonprofits and social enterprises?
I think the first thing is to tap into your networks. There are so many networks and there's a lot of information in networks. So rather than throw our arms up in the air. And there's a time for, oh goodness, this is crazy. Then there's a time to let us address this.
Absolutely.
So first is to lean into networks and learn what is happening. There are lots of resources that are being put out there. There are lots of things that we may not need funding or money for. There are organizations that are set up purely to provide technical assistance to nonprofit organizations. Some of the things I would typically pay for, we may not need to pay for them. So let's find out what is available and what's happening out there. We need to cut costs. I am on several boards, and some of these boards are not even, or some of these organizations are not even in Nigeria. And they have cut their costs already this year because of these cutbacks. It may not have hit them as much as it has hit others, but in anticipation of what is to come, without sounding like a prophet of doom, there is actually more to come. So we need to prepare ourselves and tighten our belts. We say it all the time to government. This is the time for us to do that. Something that we don't do a lot, or we don't see a lot of in Africa, that I see a lot of in the social sector in the States, is mergers. A lot of NGOs merge. That is something we might want to start considering. Again, at one of the conferences, one of the leading CEOs of one of the major or largest foundations that we know in the world, one of the things he actually said is, some people are going to fold up. We need to face that fact. So rather than fold up, you can merge with someone that is doing something
similar.
Something similar. And I think it's time for us to really consider that, because I'm on a board of an organization that is a merger in the States. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. It took years to bring the two organizations together, but it is doing a lot better as emerged, or the two organizations as one are doing more together because of synergy, right? So I believe that's something we should be looking at. We also should be along the lines of, this is not merging, but we should be looking at writing joint proposals. Again, funders, I tell you, the way things are going, it's highly likely that funders may have to pull back some funding, not because they don't have money, but because of some restrictions that will come on them as well. So they will be looking to organizations that are collaborating. So rather than fund for organizations that they used to typically fund before, they will probably tell you, why don't 4 of you come together and write a joint proposal? So we have to be thinking about initiatives or avenues of collaborating with others that are doing similar work. We're not saying do something that you weren't doing before, but I tell you, you're here, you're in this space as well. ACT Foundation funds, right? You see organizations that are doing similar work and you bring them together. So we need to proactively, deliberately, intentionally look out and seek out organizations in the space that we can work collaboratively with, because that proposal will fly faster than one that is for an individual. And just to say, there is a place for just being resolute, and people say they don't like to hear the word resilient anymore, right? But we are resilient. We have to be. And we have to be. We have no choice. We just have to get up, go out. I've told my team, the team at African Philanthropy Forum, I said, we're going to work harder than we've ever worked, but we're going to come out of this stronger. So it's about getting up, remembering why you are here in the first place, why you started the organization, why you have that vision, why it is important, and get out and get to work and find the people that can make it happen alongside you.
Wow, thank you so much. Very, very punchy insights you've given on this episode. I'm much wiser coming out of this conversation, and thank you so much for letting it all out and just going all out to just share these very insightful thoughts and nuggets for us. Talking about networks, talking about mergers, talking about joint proposals. These are very important things that we need to start thinking about as nonprofits, as social entrepreneurs. I know that in Africa we have a certain mindset, but then I think it's time we start dropping some of these mindsets for the work to go on and for us to achieve the impact that we're looking for. I think it is very important. Just before we call it a wrap, I just want to ask you about what African Philanthropy Forum is doing at this time. I know that this is a period where there's a lot of work on you, but what are you doing to help mitigate this current challenge, and how are you helping nonprofits, as it were, and social enterprises?
So again, it is continuing having these conversations with members of our network. The moment it happened, we called a meeting to hear what members were doing so that others can learn from them. And, you can get an idea, we didn't think about this. We can do exactly the same. Sharing knowledge as well, continuously sharing knowledge with members of our network, encouraging them that this is the time to give more, right? This is the time we have to give more, we have to do more, we have to extend ourselves. These are extraordinary times, and it comes with extraordinary input. Absolutely. So we continue to do that. We can't stop talking about that. And we're also engaged in partnership discussions with different organizations. You're going to see some funds come out of African Philanthropy Forum, funds that are specific to some areas, especially health, because that is the one that is hardest hit. And we're going to be engaging with the diaspora even more, because there is a lot that can come, from Africans that are living in different parts of the world. And we can match funds. We can have Africans in diaspora contributing, and then we have African philanthropists matching those funds. So it's really an array of initiatives that we're thinking through. And finally, we have Start Point, which is our platform for nonprofit organizations to connect with donors. And a lot is happening
how nonprofit organizations could connect with you. So please go ahead.
So we have a platform which was specifically established, or we specifically set up that initiative, which is Start Point, to enable non-profit proximate organizations that typically wouldn't have access to donors or to funding to come on the platform, set up their profiles. They may not even have websites. It doesn't matter. That can be your own website.
Okay.
You set up your profile and you begin to engage with donors and get access to these organizations and individuals that are willing to support work. We don't have there isn't funds exchange on the platform at this point. There have been grants that have been given to organizations on the platform through our membership network.
Okay.
But in the coming months, we're actually going to be exchanging funds on the platform. It's going to be upgraded to the point where it enables contributions on the platform.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm certain that everyone who's listening right now, go and check out Start Point, right?
Yes.
Please, by all means. Thank you so much for what you do through African Philanthropy Forum. And lastly, we've talked a lot, and just ending on a very light note, basically, because we've talked a lot about all the different challenges and how to get through. And I can imagine the weight of the work on your shoulders right now, even though you're looking very beautiful on this chair today. However, I just want to ask you on a very light note, if you were not right now thinking about all the issues and how to solve all of Africa's problems, what would you be doing right now? Something just very relaxing to just blow off steam.
So I'll be on my bed. Really? I travel so much. I travel. I think my work is probably 85% travel.
Oh, wow.
And so I cherish every moment that I spend at home with family, connecting with friends, and just catching up. In terms of, another profession that's something of interest for me, if I wasn't, again, sold out to this space, I probably would be in interiors. I'll be doing something in interior decorating or design. Maybe not design, but decorating.
Oh, no, wow.
I like fixing spaces.
That's nice. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow, that's so good to see. Sometimes we see people and we don't know. I mean, you're so sold out to this work and we love it and we thank you for being sold out to it. We are better off with people like you on the board. Yes. So thank you so much. And we wish you all the best with what you're doing with African Philanthropy Forum. Thank you so much for coming on ACTPod again. And we hope that we'll have you again after this one.
Thank you, Omoye. And thank you so much to ACT Foundation for still being there and, going on this journey, this hard, long journey. Absolutely. And as an APF member, we're really proud to be associated with ACT and the work that is being done. And we look forward to our continued collaboration.
Thank you very much, Mosun. There you have it. Today's conversation has been very insightful and so many nuggets to take back. And I hope that you have noted a number of these things to act upon. Yes, the world is in a very critical situation right now, but we can get through it. We can with our resilience. And I hope that you're not giving up as we are not giving up. Thank you very much. We'll be back again on ACTPod. Until then, stay happy and keep doing all the great work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to ACTPod. For inquiries and feedback, please reach us on actpod@actrustfoundation.org. Follow us on social media at actfoundation_ on Instagram and Twitter, at Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation on Facebook. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. ACTPod, our story, our continent.